Don't bother coming to the awards night. My coworker texted, "Your name isn't on the list." I read the message 3 times. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she meant someone else. Maybe there were 2 Nadias in the department. Maybe the organizing team had changed something last minute. But deep down, I knew. Awards night was for the launch campaign. The campaign I had stayed up until 2 a.m. building. The one I presented to clients when my manager said she was too busy. The one that brought in the biggest sponsor the company had ever had. My name wasn't on the list. My fingers hovered over the screen. I didn't feel angry. I felt small, like I had misunderstood my place in the room all along. I typed slowly, checked the sponsor column. Then I locked my phone and placed it face down on my desk. The office around me hummed with polite laughter and keyboard clicks. No one looked at me differently. No one whispered. Everything felt normal, too normal. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed, no reply. I stared at the window instead. It wasn't just the awards night. It was the pattern, the subtle shifting of credit over the past 6 months. The way my ideas became team efforts when they succeeded. The way my mistakes became learning experiences that were mentioned in performance reviews. And somehow, every time something important happened, I found out through a forwarded message. I used to believe we were a team. Especially her, Ayesha. She had joined the company a year before me. She was confident, charming, always smiling just enough to seem kind. When I first started, she brought me coffee and told me, "We women have to stick together here." I believed her. When she struggled with her presentation slides, I stayed late to fix them. When she had to leave early for family matters, I covered client calls without complaint. When she cried in the break room about feeling overlooked for promotion, I told her she deserved better. And I meant it, but something changed after the sponsorship deal went through. The sponsor wasn't just any company. It was my uncle's firm. I hadn't even wanted to use that connection. I hesitated for weeks before mentioning it to my manager. I didn't want to look like I was riding on family influence. But when our campaign struggled for funding, I swallowed my pride. I made one call. My uncle agreed to review the proposal, not because I asked, but because he believed in the concept. He liked the numbers. He liked the strategy. He signed. The company celebrated like it was a miracle. And slowly the story changed. It became a team collaboration. Then it became Ayesha's persistence with investors. Then, during meetings, I noticed something strange. When the sponsor was mentioned, people looked at her, not me. I told myself I was imagining it, that recognition didn't matter. That results mattered more than applause. But when that message arrived tonight, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, quietly. I stood up and walked to the restroom, locking myself into a stall like I needed privacy from my own thoughts. Why didn't she just tell me directly? Why make it a text? Why make it feel like a favor? Don't bother coming. Not, there might have been an oversight. Not, let's check with management. Just don't come, as if I were the extra. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. "Proud of you, Beta. Saw the company announcement about awards night. Wish your mother were here to see this." My throat tightened. He didn't know. None of them knew how much I had given to this place, how many dinners I skipped, how many family gatherings I attended through video calls while pretending I wasn't exhausted. I had told them I was building something meaningful, something stable, something that would make them proud. And now I wasn't even invited to the celebration of my own work. I wiped my eyes carefully. I refused to let mascara betray me before people did. When I returned to my desk, Ayesha was standing near the printer. She glanced at me briefly, just briefly, then looked away. There it was, guilt, not anger, not indifference, guilt. And in that tiny flicker of avoidance, I understood something important. This wasn't a mistake, it was a decision. I didn't confront her, I didn't ask questions, I didn't demand explanations. For the first time since I started this job, I chose silence, not because I was weak, but because I wanted to see who would speak when I stopped defending myself. The rest of the day passed in careful normalcy. Emails were answered, deadlines were met, smiles were exchanged like nothing had shifted. But something had. On my way home, I opened the event website on my phone. There it was, a large banner listing major sponsors. My uncle's company name shone in gold letters at the top, and beneath it, in smaller print, sponsorship facilitated by Nadia Rahman. My name wasn't on the awards list, but it was on the money. I felt something settle inside me, not rage. Clarity. If they thought I wouldn't show up, they didn't know me at all. And if they believed my value ended at the work I handed them quietly, they were about to learn the difference between presence and contribution. I slipped my phone back into my bag. For now, I would say nothing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait. The awards night arrived dressed in gold and glass. I almost didn't go. For a few hours, I stood in front of my closet, staring at dresses like they were decisions about myself, worth. A part of me whispered, why attend something that erased you? Another part, quieter, steadier, said go. Not for them, for yourself, so I chose a simple navy dress, nothing dramatic, nothing loud. I didn't want to look like I was trying to prove anything. When I entered the hotel ballroom, the lights were warm and flattering. Chandeliers shimmered like approval. Laughter floated through the air, practiced and polished. No one stopped me at the entrance. No one said my name wasn't on the list. Because technically I wasn't a guest. I was the reason half the room existed. I spotted Ayesha near the stage, glowing in silver. She looked confident, relaxed, surrounded. When her eyes met mine, it lasted half a second, just enough for surprise to flicker across her face. She recovered quickly. Hey, she said when I approached. Her smile was smooth. I thought you weren't coming. I almost didn't. I replied gently. She nodded, adjusting her bracelet. It's been hectic. You know how these things are. Yes, I knew exactly how these things were. People gathered. Music softened. The program began. Our manager took the stage first, thanking the team, the clients, the leadership. Then he paused dramatically before saying, and of course, this milestone wouldn't have been possible without our lead negotiator, who worked tirelessly with sponsors, and my chest tightened. Ayesha Khan. The applause came like a wave. I clapped too. Because what else do you do when your name dissolves in a room full of witnesses? She walked to the stage with grace, hugging the manager, shaking hands, smiling wide. Cameras flashed. I watched carefully. She didn't mention me, not once. She spoke about late nights and persistence, and believing in partnerships. She spoke about earning trust. She spoke beautifully. And I realized something painful. The betrayal wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't dramatic. It was strategic. She never lied outright. She just let the silence do the work. After her speech, people surrounded her with congratulations. I stayed near the back, sipping water, observing. 2 executives stood nearby. Smart move securing that sponsor. One said, "She's ambitious." The other replied, "Heard she had a personal connection." I felt my heart beat in my throat. Personal connection, that was me, but my name floated nowhere in their conversation. I stepped outside onto the balcony for air. The city lights blinked below like distant thoughts. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired, not of the company, of myself, of how quickly I had trusted, of how easily I believed kindness meant loyalty, of how I assumed effort guaranteed acknowledgement. My phone buzzed. It was my uncle. "Proud of you tonight. Watching the live stream, they mentioned your colleague. Strange they didn't bring you up. Everything okay?" I stared at the message for a long time. He noticed, even from miles away. "Yes," I typed back, "everything is clear." and for the first time I meant it, because something had shifted inside me during that applause. I saw the room differently now. Recognition here wasn't about truth. It was about positioning, about who spoke first, about who stayed visible, and I had spent months working quietly, believing substance would speak for itself. Inside, the program continued. Awards were handed out, names were called, mine wasn't. But when the final segment began, a formal acknowledgement of sponsors, the screen behind the stage lit up with logos. My uncle's company appeared first, large, unmissable. The host smiled brightly. We especially thank Nadir Rahman for facilitating this partnership and building the bridge that made tonight possible. The room paused. Just for a second, it wasn't thunderous applause, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real, heads turned. Not toward Ayesha, toward me. I didn't move immediately. I didn't wave. I didn't rush to the stage. I simply stood where I was, calm, and nodded politely. That was enough. When I returned inside, a few executives approached me with warm curiosity. You handled the sponsor connection. Yes, I answered simply. Well done. Impressive negotiation. Thank you. No performance. No correction, no exposure, just truth spoken softly. Across the room, Ayesha watched, not with anger, with realization. Later that night, as people filtered out, she approached me near the exit. I didn't know they'd mention you separately, she said carefully. I did. I replied gently. Her expression shifted, confusion mixed with something else. You could have told me, she added. I looked at her for a moment. I did. I said quietly, I told you to check the sponsor column. She didn't respond. There was nothing dramatic about the silence between us. No shouting, no accusations, just understanding. And for the first time since that text message, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. Some betrayals don't shatter you. They clarify you. And as I stepped into the night air, I realized something important. I didn't need the stage. I needed the truth, and now it had found its own microphone. The morning after the awards night, the office felt unusually polite. People smiled at me a little longer than usual. A few stopped by my desk with casual questions about the sponsorship process. My manager sent a short email, great visibility last night. Let's discuss future partnerships, visibility. That word lingered. For months, I had been visible only when something needed to be fixed quietly. Now that my name had been spoken publicly, the atmosphere had shifted, not dramatically, but noticeably. Ayesha arrived 20 minutes late. She walked in with her usual confidence, but something about her movements felt tighter. Controlled, she greeted everyone normally. When she reached my desk, she paused. Can we talk later? She asked. Her voice was steady. Too steady, of course. I said. I didn't feel nervous anymore. That surprised me. A week ago, I would have prepared arguments in my head. I would have rehearsed what to say, how to say it, how to sound fair but firm. Now I felt still. Throughout the morning, I noticed small things. In meetings, when sponsorship strategy came up, people turned to me directly. My manager asked for my input before hers. When I spoke, no one interrupted, no one dismissed, and for the first time, I realized something uncomfortable. I had trained them to overlook me. Not intentionally, but through constant accommodation, through staying late without asking for credit, through letting others present work I prepared, through choosing harmony over acknowledgement. Silence can be generous. But it can also be permission. Around noon, Ayesha knocked lightly on the glass of the small conference room. I joined her inside. She closed the door. I didn't expect them to single you out like that. She began. I waited, she exhaled. I wasn't trying to take credit. It just happened. It just happened, like my name simply fell off the list by accident. Like narratives rearrange themselves on their own, I know how it looked. She continued quickly, but you know how this company works. If you don't step forward, people assume that you did it alone. I asked softly. She hesitated. That you led it. She corrected. I studied her face carefully. There was no cruelty there, no villainy, just ambition, fear, and maybe insecurity. You could have mentioned me, I said calmly. I thought it would make things complicated. She admitted. Complicated. For who? Not for me, for her. I nodded slowly. I'm not upset about the award, I said honestly. I'm upset about the message. Her eyes flickered. You told me not to come. I didn't want you to feel awkward, she replied quickly. Your name wasn't on the internal list, and you thought I wouldn't show up. I finished. Silence filled the room. That silence felt different now, not fragile, clear. I believed we were working together. I continued. But somewhere along the way, that changed, and instead of talking to me about it, you made a decision for me. She looked down at the table. I didn't think you'd mind, she whispered, and that was the truth of it. She didn't think I would mind. Because I never had before. I leaned back in my chair. I don't mind recognition, I said gently, but I mind being erased. Her eyes lifted. I'm not trying to compete with you, she said quietly. I'm not competing, I replied. That realization settled between us like something solid. I wasn't fighting her. I was outgrowing the version of myself that accepted less. After a moment, she nodded. I understand. I don't know if she truly did, but understanding wasn't my responsibility anymore. When we left that room, nothing exploded. No one knew a boundary had just been drawn, but I felt it, clear, invisible, strong. Over the next few days, I changed small things. When I sent reports, I included my name on summaries. When meetings were scheduled, I clarified my role in writing. When someone asked about sponsorship negotiations, I answered directly instead of deferring, not aggressively, just accurately. Something else shifted too. I stopped staying late for problems that weren't mine. I stopped answering messages after midnight. I stopped volunteering for tasks that came with no visibility. And interestingly, the world didn't collapse. Deadlines were still met. Projects still moved. The only difference was this. I was no longer shrinking to make space for someone else's ambition. One evening, as I packed my bag to leave on time for once, my manager stopped by my desk. I've been reviewing the sponsorship numbers, he said thoughtfully. You have a strong negotiation instinct. We'd like you to lead the next external partnership. Lead? The word felt quiet and heavy. I'd be happy to, I replied. As he walked away, I noticed Ayesha watching from her desk. Our eyes met. There was no hostility there now, just awareness. Choices have consequences, not dramatic ones. Natural ones. That night, I went home and sat with my father at the dining table. He poured tea slowly, the way he always did when he wanted to talk. You look different, he observed gently. Different how? I asked, calm. He said. I smiled. I think I stopped trying to prove myself, I replied. He nodded thoughtfully. When you know your worth, you don't argue for it. You live it. That sentence stayed with me. Because silence is not weakness. It is observation. It is patience. It is choosing the right moment to speak, and the courage to walk away when you are not heard. And I was no longer afraid of either. 3 months later, the company announced a restructuring, not dramatic, not chaotic, just the kind of quiet shift that changes everything without warning. A new division was being formed, external partnerships and strategic alliances. It would handle sponsorships, investor relations, and brand collaborations. I read the internal memo twice. Then I saw my name, Head of Strategic Partnerships, Nadia Rahman. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. The position wasn't a reward for awards night. It wasn't an apology. It was a consequence of numbers, meetings, contracts, and measurable results. It was built on work that could be tracked, not stories that could be rewritten. When the announcement went public inside the office, reactions were mixed. Some congratulated me warmly, some with polite surprise. Ayesha came to my desk in the afternoon. I heard. She said softly, "Yes, you deserve it." Her voice didn't shake. There was no bitterness in it, just acceptance. "Thank you," I replied. For a moment, we stood in a silence that no longer felt tense, just honest. I was offered the senior campaign role. She added after a pause, "It's a lateral move." I nodded. "It suits you." And I meant it, because here was the truth I had slowly learned. We were never fighting for the same space. She wanted visibility in the room. I wanted ownership of the table. And ownership requires something different: patience, clarity, boundaries. That evening, I stayed late in my new office, not because I had to, but because I wanted a moment alone in it. The room was smaller than I expected. No dramatic view, no oversized desk, just a clean space, a window overlooking the city, and a sense of earned quiet. I placed my bag down slowly. I thought back to that first message, "Don't bother coming." If I had obeyed it, maybe none of this would have unfolded the way it did. But the real shift hadn't happened at the awards night. It happened when I stopped arguing, when I stopped needing them to admit what they had done, when I stopped trying to be included and started building where I stood. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. My manager stepped in. "Quick question," he said. "Your uncle's firm is considering renewing the sponsorship for 2 years. They mentioned wanting to work directly through you." I nodded. "That's fine." He hesitated. "You've handled this situation with a lot of professionalism." I understood what he meant without him saying it. Office politics could have turned ugly. I could have complained. I could have exposed details in meetings. I could have embarrassed someone publicly. I didn't. I prefer clarity over conflict. I replied. He smiled slightly. "It shows." After he left, I sat by the window and watched the city lights flicker on. Recognition is loud. Respect is quiet, and respect lasts longer. A week later, the sponsorship renewal was finalized. The contract bore my name as primary liaison. Not because I demanded it, because it was accurate. At home that night, my father placed the signed press release on the table between us. "I saw this," he said with a soft smile. "So did I." I answered. He studied me carefully. "You're proud." "Yes," I admitted. "But not for the promotion." For what, then? For not becoming someone I'm not. Because that had been the real test. Not whether I could outshine someone, but whether I could remain gentle without being naive, whether I could stay kind without being invisible, whether I could choose dignity without needing revenge. The truth is, Ayesha and I still worked in the same building. We still passed each other in hallways. We still attended the same meetings, but something fundamental had changed. She no longer spoke for me, and I no longer waited to be spoken for. One afternoon, months later, a new intern approached my desk nervously. "I heard you're the one who secured the biggest sponsor in company history," she said. "How did you do it?" I smiled. "I asked," I said, "and I made sure my name stayed attached to the work." She nodded thoughtfully, as if storing that advice somewhere important. After she left, I realized that was the quiet emotional justice of it all. Not applause, not public correction, but growth, boundaries, accuracy. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you. It introduces you to the version of yourself that no longer needs permission. Looking back, I don't resent the message that told me not to come. It revealed everything I needed to see. Some people will try to edit you out of the story, but if your name is written in the foundation, it doesn't disappear. It waits, and when the time is right, it rises calmly, clearly, without shouting. The greatest power I discovered wasn't proving them wrong. It was proving to myself that I would never shrink again, and that peace, that quiet, steady peace, was worth more than any award stage could ever offer.